Hey everyone, it's Gabrielle, and today we're going to go through Leaving Cert predictions for the 2026 English exam. We will also go through the structure of Paper 1 and Paper 2, just to make sure you'll have a few less surprises come up when you'll be doing your exams.
Just a quick disclaimer before we begin. These predictions are not guaranteed to come up, so make sure to cover every topic on the course before the exams. These predictions are based off evidence from previous exam years and from predictions given to us by expert teachers. Now, enjoy the video.
So let's get started. So first things first, we'll start off with Paper 1, which is known as the language paper. Every year, Paper 1 will revolve around a certain theme, which you will see at the very beginning of the exam. So for question A, you will see extracts from 3 different sources. So first of all, you might see an extract of narrative or fictional writing, and then you might see a non-fiction piece, which could include an extract from a memoir, a blog post, an open letter, etc. And then you might see some sort of persuasive writing piece, which might be a speech or an essay by a famous person. In this part of the exam, it is common to see a couple of paragraphs from a book that has recently won a prize. Like for example, last year we saw Samantha Harvey's Orbital come up in the exam. So do keep an eye out on books that are winning some prizes, especially in the Irish literary sphere. Speeches from well-known political figures have also come up. So if you want to do a little bit of preparation, do have a look at speeches maybe made by the likes of Greta Thunberg or our new president, Catherine Connolly, and especially Catherine Connolly because she does talk a lot about social justice issues in Ireland. So if you want to be extra prepared for this part of the exam, do be sure to keep up with current affairs. So even just skimming through articles by The Guardian or The New Yorker will really help. You can even try your hand at writing responses to these articles, which will help you to think creatively and critically. So here are some potential topics that might come up in the 2026 exam. First of all, the ongoing climate crisis. So do be looking at heat waves in Europe and also maybe destructive storms and heavy flooding. Another potential theme could be forced migration and displacement. So look at what's going on in Gaza or Sudan. You can also look at this freedom of speech and the decline of democratic freedom, and look at recent examples globally, such as media regulations in Hungary. The threat of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT use could also come up as its own theme. And here I imagine that you might be asked at some point to give your opinion as a Leaving Cert student. And then finally, the theme might revolve around issues relating to self-expression, identity, and creativity. As the world is rapidly changing around us, do consider the value of things like art, music, writing, or even like online content creation as a means to connect with each other. So then moving on to question B, here you'll be asked to show off your writing skills and carry out a specific task. Think of this part of the exam as testing your functional writing skills, so you might be asked to write a blog post, the transcript to a podcast, a speech, or a short talk. Basically what the examiner is looking for here is that when you are told to write, say, a podcast transcript, that you actually write it in the form of a podcast transcript. Basically, you need to show genre awareness. So for example, if it's a speech that you're writing, then you need to show that you are aware that there is an audience listening to you. And my own piece of advice for this part of the exam is to try write something that is a little bit more unique, because remember that the examiner will be reading hundreds of these short pieces. So if you put in some unique opinions or insights, then this might help you get a better mark. So when it comes to the composition part of the exam, it is kind of tricky to predict what sort of topics might appear here. If you look through the past exam paper questions, you can kind of suss out a pattern of the types of questions that are being asked. So for example, in 2025, we saw options like the personal essay, the speech, the feature article, the short story, and the discursive essay. Although it is really difficult to predict what sort of topic might come up in this part of the exam, what you can do now is decide where your strengths are at. For example, if you write honestly and you don't mind opening up a little bit in the exam, then writing a discursive essay or a personal essay might appeal to you. But if that's not really your thing and you're more of an analytical person, then maybe writing a speech or an article might be a better fit for you. Whatever you decide, now's the time to start practicing writing in this style. So be sure to flick through the past exam paper questions for when articles or speeches have come up and try plot out what you would say if you were in the exam. You can definitely prepare different short stories, articles or essays for the exam, but just be assured to adapt your writing to the question being asked. You're not going to get a lot of marks if your short story that you rewrote has basically nothing to do with the prompt or the topic at hand. On Studyclix, we actually have loads of sample answers for this part of the exam, so it might be useful to flick through those and see if you want to take any of the different answers as inspiration or ideas for your own work. So then moving on to paper 2, this part of the exam is known as the studied texts paper, and it can be a little bit easier to predict than paper 1. As most students study Macbeth as their single text, this is what we're going to focus on for the next couple of minutes. In 2023, students were asked to write about Macbeth as a tragic hero, and also they were asked to write about Lady Macbeth and the witches. In earlier years like 2019 and 2014, the questions focused more on things like themes, language, imagery. However, in recent years, the topics kind of shifted more towards balancing a few ideas at once. So in any case, you definitely want to be revising the characters of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and know them really well, but definitely don't ignore the others like Banquo, Malcolm, Macduff, and be asking yourself, like, what do these characters tell us about Macbeth? Do they reveal something, you know? So this year, it's likely that the exam will focus on themes like power, ambition, kingship, and the supernatural. And you might actually be asked to write about how these themes are explored through different characters. So when you'll be writing your own notes, think about how these characters are all connected to each other. If you get a question on the likes of appearance versus reality or ambition, then do be sure to bring in imagery and symbolism into your answer. Like for example, the symbolism of clothes kind of features throughout Macbeth, and it links really well into the themes of ambition and power. And also don't forget that Macbeth is a play, so don't overlook like how these characters might interact with each other on a stage. And also how soliloquies actually show what the character is thinking. If you're struggling at all with learning Macbeth, because there is a lot of content to go through, do be sure to look at our free podcast series on it. It will be linked in the description box below. So moving on to the poetry questions, we think that Meehan, Nicuillenan, and Heaney might come up in the paper this year. We're thinking that Heaney will come up, but Yeats won't, because Heaney will not be on the 2027 exam poets list, but Yeats will be. And also 2 Irish male poets came up on the exam last year, so it would make sense that Nicuillenan and Meehan will come up this year. From these 2, Nicuillenan won't be on the 2027 exam paper, so there's a good chance she will come up. So moving beyond the Irish poets, we predict that Donne and Bishop will come up this year. Smith and Eliot came up last year, and so it would be unusual that the 2 of them will come up again this year. And if you're looking for some more materials to study the poets, we have loads of podcast episodes available on them, which you can find on any platform that you listen to podcasts on, like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. But we also have loads of sample answers on the Studyclix site for the poets, so do be sure to check those out. So in summary, our poet predictions for this year are Meehan, Donne, Nicuillenan, Bishop, and Heaney. So for the comparative study, you will see all 3 modes come up in the exam. So this includes cultural context, general vision and viewpoint, and literary genre. Questions on the cultural context often ask about the values and attitudes held by the characters and society, opportunities for success, fulfillment, or happiness, and what obstacles or challenges are faced by the characters as a result of the society they are in. So for general vision and viewpoint, you might want to revise like the author's attitude towards the text, whether it is like positive or negative or maybe both. And you can also consider when this attitude shifts or changes. And you can also consider how you as a reader felt towards the text. A personal response is key for the general vision and viewpoint question, so be sure to even keep a bank of different words that you want to use to express how you felt about the text. And also how these feelings might have changed throughout the text. And then finally, for the literary genre, be sure to consider different aspects of the text, like recurring motifs, the title, the format, the music, the symbolism, etc. As all of these help to convey the message of the text. So if I was going to revise all of these modes again, I would definitely be going through past exam paper questions and picking out like the key words that crop up in the questions. And also consider how challenges, opportunities, morals, paradoxes feature in the different texts. Even though the comparative question can seem a bit scary at first, honestly, it is really doable if you slow down on the exam and really read word for word what the question is asking you. And also be sure to think about what the different keywords in the question mean. And then finally, for the topic that is most overlooked by students when preparing, we're going to talk about unseen poetry. Basically, this part of the exam is just asking you to demonstrate what have you learned about poetry since first year. Regardless of what question will be asked, you need to revise your poetic techniques and terminology and scatter them throughout your answer to get the maximum amount of marks. This section can be a little bit forgotten by students just because, you can't really predict what comes up, but really do go over all of your different poetic techniques and then you can basically adapt them to whatever poem comes up. So do be sure to practice past exam paper questions for this part of the exam, but also if you want some more variety in the different poems that can come up, you can go through the mock exam paper questions on Studyclix. And also when you see this question in the exam, be sure to underline the key words to make sure that you're answering the question being asked. And there you have it. Those are all of our insights into the 2026 English exam. Remember that preparation is key for Leaving Cert English, so do be sure to go through past exam paper questions in English and also go through all the different resources we have on Studyclix like sample answers, podcast episodes, etc. And also don't forget to not rely too heavily on predictions as they're just predictions and not facts. I really hope this video helps and I'm wishing you the very best of luck with the study. And if you found this video helpful, I'm delighted to say that we will be releasing loads more prediction videos for subjects like maths, Irish, biology, chemistry, etc. So be sure to subscribe to this channel to check those out. I really hope this video helped and best of luck with the English study. Bye!